I mean, when you think about getting a forecast for where a hurricane is going to go, how intense is it, we have a lot of tools at our disposal. We have satellites, we have radar, we have computer models, but perhaps the most important tool of all comes from aircraft. Let me introduce you to the 13 Air Force and Noaa Hurricane Hunter aircraft fleet. Okay, there are 13 planes here. Let's start with the Noaa Orion P3 aircraft. As a matter of fact, this is the one that flew out in Danny, the first mission. Their names, interestingly enough, Miss Piggy and Kermit. Well, Piggy flew out in Danny, and we had for the first time a radar image that actually came back from this. But let me show you some of the instrumentation from the Orion P3, flying anywhere from 1,000 up to 10,000 feet. Right on the front end of this, we find what we call a barber pole. And this is essentially an anemometer. It measures wind going in and exiting the hurricane. Right there with that instrument right there. On the belly, there is a radar. This is the one we got the image from, okay? This weather radar here kind of looking down, if you will, out in the horizontal from flight level and giving us an idea of what we're looking at. And on the tail of this plane, we have another radar, and this one is going to look in the vertical. How deep are these thunderstorms? How tall are they? Are they developing? Are they complete at all levels of the atmosphere? That's the kind of research data that you get from the Noaa P3, which is typically a research aircraft. All right, all of the planes, all 13 of them are equipped with these. These are dropsons. These are perhaps the most important part of the mission because when these are dropped, you can get a 3D grid of what this storm looks like. Temperature, dew point, wind, barometric pressure, all coming back every half a second with a data point. This is a huge piece of equipment, and obviously something from wherever it's dropped down to the surface, giving us very, very important data. All right, who does a lot of the heavy lifting? The WC-130Js. Those are the hurricane hunters, and obviously we've seen these planes before. They stop off on the East Coast before, obviously, hurricane season, and they are just the beasts. They get into some gnarly stuff. They can fly as low as 500 feet. They can get up to 10,000 feet. Let's start you off by showing you what this radar looks like. And it sits right on the nose of the storm. What are you flying into? That nose radar is going to tell us what you're flying into and give us a good idea of just how intense it's going to be. And as I mentioned, as the hurricanes are developing, they can get into some pretty gnarly stuff. Inside the plane, there are many meteorologists that fly on missions that last usually about 12 hours, and they're responsible for acquiring the data, dropping the SONs out of the plane. One of the neatest pieces of equipment that's come along in recent years is actually on the wing of the WC-130J. It is called an SFMR instrument, and this instrument essentially looks at the wave turbidity and estimates with very good detail what the winds are like given what it's doing with the waves. It actually looks at the ocean surface, and you can see just how intense some of those winds are. So we really like the data that comes back from the SFMR instrument. All right, what do you do with storms, obviously, that have altitude to 40,000 feet? You got to get data up there. What about storms that you want to forecast out in time? We bring you Gonzo, the Gulfstream 4. This also, again, a Noaa aircraft here. This flies, again, above the storm and out ahead of it where it's expected to go. How deep is the dry air? All right. What kind of steering may influence the storm in time? You'll see a lot of data come back from the Gulfstream aircraft. Again, there is one of these planes, there is 10 C-130s, and there are 2 Orion P3s. All of these making up the fleet of the hurricane hunters, giving us perhaps the most important data we can get when forecasting the strength and the direction of a hurricane. That is the Hurricane Hunter fleet.